But we as a continent have now defined ourselves.
In the news, herdsmen crisis. Nigerians have right to live wherever they choose, El-Rufai. Gwarimpa market fire leaves 6 dead and others injured. Across Africa, African Union promises COVID-19 vaccine in 3 weeks. On the international scene, Myanmar coup, military junta blocks Facebook as resistance to coup grows. On the entertainment scene, Omogeto first to cross 500 million naira in Nollywood box office. In business, federal government expects over 1 trillion naira private sector investments for road concession. In sports, Mo Farah wins Virtual Sports World Cancer Solidarity Challenge. Details shortly. Hello and welcome to TOS TV, your digital first Pan-African network. I am Ruel Penao and this is TOS News 360. President Muhammadu Buhari has extended the tenure of Muhammad Adamu as the Inspector General of Police by 3 months. Adamu was due to retire from the police last Monday, having spent the maximum 35 years in service. The extension to his tenure was announced on Thursday by the Minister of Police Affairs, Muhammad Dingyadi, at the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Dingyadi said the extension was necessary to give room for the proper selection of a successor.
It's my greatest honor to be with you this evening to brief you on the decision of Mr. President over the appointment of the Inspector General of Police. Mr. President has decided that the present IGP Muhammad Adamu will continue to serve as the IG for the next 3 months to allow for a robust and efficient process of appointing a new IG. I think this is not unconnected with the desire of Mr. President to not only have a smooth handover, but to also ensure that right officer is being appointed into that position. Thank you very much. No, Mr. President is extending it by 3 months to allow him get into a process of appointing a new one. What are you asking? No, there is no lacuna. There is no lacuna. Mr. President can decide to extend his tenure, and this is what he has done, but for 3 months. No, it's one of those social media stories that one cannot control. And I think from what I've told you now, you can classify that information appropriately. Thank you. It's not as
Kaduna State Governor Nasser El-Rufai on Wednesday urged other state governors in Nigeria to avoid anarchy and uphold the rule of law and the right of all Nigerians to reside wherever they choose to live. In a state broadcast, the governor also urged other governors to order the arrest of host citizens who issue eviction notices to people of other tribes. Speaking on Wednesday, the Kaduna State Governor said indigents of the states residing in other parts of the country had reached out to him to lament their host communities' hostilities in recent times. On behalf of the government of Kaduna State, I call on all Nigerians living in our state to respect law and order and the rights of all citizens to live in peace and security wherever they reside or work, he said.
And disavow these attacks and massacres. We must avoid anarchy and vigorously promote the rule of law and the right of all citizens to life, liberty, and livelihoods wherever they choose to reside. It is time for governments and leaders at all levels to step in, exercise firm action, engage people, and ensure that the responsibility these dire times demand are not derailed by those who only see opportunity for their own myopic agendas. We cannot allow, by inaction or otherwise, the reign of anarchy where fear creates a tragic momentum of violence, blurring the lines between victims and perpetrators and complicating a difficult moment. We urge our representatives in the National Assembly to expedite action on the constitutional amendments that would usher in state and community policing, as this is the ultimate panacea for effective law enforcement.
Renowned Islamic cleric Sheikh Ahmad Gumi on Tuesday met with some bandits in the Tubali and Makai forest of Shinkafi local government area of Zamfara state. At the first settlement in Tubali forest, the scholar was said to have met with about 150 armed Fulanis who expressed their grievances and why it would be difficult for them to surrender their arms. The bandit commander, identified simply as Bello, said, "Let the killings of our loved ones by security agents without due process of the law stop, as well as cattle rustling that denied most of us legitimate means of livelihood." While Gumi was quoted to have said, "Let there be peace," you all have a legitimate concern and grievances, and I believe that since the Niger Delta armed militants were integrated by the federal government and are even in the business of pipelines protection, the federal government should immediately look into how something like that will be done to the Fulani to provide them with reasonable means of livelihood, including jobs, working capitals, entrepreneurship training, building clinic, and schooling. A fire incident at TP Market on 3rd Avenue, Gwarimpa in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, has reportedly left no fewer than 6 persons dead and several others injured on Thursday. The fire started from a spark in one of the shops and raged on for about 2 hours before the arrival of the Federal Fire Service. Hoodlums took advantage of the station to vandalize, the shops and carry out other nefarious activities before the firefighters arrived. 5 bodies were recovered from the fire and taken to the morgue. 1 was burnt to ashes, while those injured were rushed to the hospital. An eyewitness was quoted saying, "We were woken up last night at about 12 a.m. For over 2 hours, firefighters didn't come to the scene. 6 people had already been burnt to death before they arrived. Some of the shop owners usually sleep there, so they were trapped in their shops." The Nigerian government has announced that it has set up a joint committee to investigate concerns related to the issues raised by the Senior Staff Association Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union of Allied and Education Institutions over payment anomalies. The FG disclosed this in a statement after the Minister for Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, led a meeting between the federal government and members of the unions. The minister added that the joint committee would be made up of the unions and members of the government side, which would work in harmony to ensure that those anomalies in payment complaints by the unions were treated to the satisfactions of concerned parties. He added that the federal government launched a bigger committee to formalize the allowances that had been granted to all the unions in the university system, academic and non-academic, citing the need for uniformity in the earned allowances in the university system. February 4 is marked as World Cancer Day, and this year's event is themed "I Am and I Will." Medical practitioners who spoke to Daily Trust revealed that there are no more than 3 functional radiotherapy centers for cancer treatment in Nigeria. Speaking about these challenges, an oncology consultant at Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Dr. Muhammad Inuwa Mustafa, identified lack of radiotherapy machine as a monumental concern that requires urgent attention from both the federal and state government. He said 70% of cancer patients need radiotherapy treatment, adding, "In Kano, we don't have a single radiotherapy machine. In the whole country, we have only 3 centers with functional radiotherapy machines, and they are in Abuja, Lagos, and Enugu." Based on the International Atomic Energy Management Agency recommendation, any community that has 250,000 people is supposed to have a machine. So if you look at Kano, based on our population, we are supposed to have not less than 20 radiotherapy machines, and we have none. With over 200 million people, we have only 3 functional machines for the whole country, and this is terrible, he said. He therefore appeals to the government to put up a radiotherapy machine in each state so as to address the major concern of cancer patients. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS TV network. You're watching TOS News 360. Up next, stories from across Africa after the break. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. 16 African countries have shown interest in securing COVID-19 vaccines under an African Union initiative, and the aim is to deliver allocations in the next 3 weeks. However, John Nkengasong, director of the AU's African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, did not give a specific date. The AU initially secured 270 million doses from manufacturers for member states, then late last month said it would receive another 400 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. African states that have started rolling out vaccines include Egypt, Guinea, Morocco, and Seychelles. South Africa, which has the highest number of COVID-19 cases and deaths on the continent, received its first shipment of vaccines on Monday, but the vaccination campaign has not yet started. Many African states are buying vaccines through an international scheme separate to the AU effort called COVAX, but some are also planning to negotiate supplies directly from pharmaceutical companies. Democratic Republic of Congo took part in an operation against rebels in the northeast on Wednesday. The region of Djougou has been under threat from armed groups, where at least 46 people were killed in a single attack last month. The Congolese army said they were probing the January massacre, saying it was still early and difficult to explain what happened and those responsible for the killings, as several groups operate in the area. Violence in the region has forced about 12,000 people to flee. Some have sheltered in the Kigonze refugee camp. Indigents of Djougou now live in refugee camps in Bunia, the capital of the province of Ituri. All locals want is solutions, security, and peace. Governor of Ituri province says it is a complex situation. June Bamasina said peace in the region is difficult to achieve due to the presence of different armed force groups. Bamanisa added that the proximity with South Sudan, where the situation is unstable, sometimes leads to trafficking of weapons between the groups. He thinks that a way to find peace was to follow the United Nations dialogue process. Ex-Ugandan rebel commander Dominic Ongwen has been convicted of war crimes at the International Criminal Court. The International Criminal Court delivered its verdict in the trial of Dominic Ongwen, a former child soldier turned rebel commander accused of 70 counts of crimes against humanity and war crimes. The former rebel commander, who went on trial in December 2016, pleaded not guilty to the charges at the start of proceedings and continues to deny all accusations. He was said to have committed the crimes while he was a commander of the Lord's Resistance Army in northern Uganda. Presiding Judge Bertram Schmidt, while reading the verdict, said his guilt has been established beyond any reasonable doubt. Although sentencing will take place at a later date, Ongwen faces life imprisonment. Thursday will mark the first time the Hague-based ICC has issued a judgment in a case involving the LRA. The case in particular had presented a dilemma to the court, as he appeared to be both the victim and the alleged perpetrator. Tunisia's president stands firm in his opposition to a cabinet reshuffle, suggesting he would not let the 11 new ministers take the oath of office. Tunisia's parliament last month had approved a cabinet reshuffle that deepened the conflict between the prime minister and the president, who said, and I quote, "We are ready for all the solutions, but I won't back down from my principles. I am ready for dialogue, but I am not ready to talk with those who have robbed the Tunisian people." President Kais condemned the absence of women among the new ministers and said some likely new cabinet members may have conflicts of interest. Lawmakers in the Democratic Republic of Congo elected a speaker loyal to President Felix Tshisekedi Wednesday after a string of moves to break his predecessor Joseph Kabila's grip on the legislature. Almost 400 of the 500 members supported Christophe Umboso, the National Assembly's oldest member at 79, who left Kabila's FCC party in December to rally behind Tshisekedi. The election follows the ousting of former Speaker Janine Mabunda 3 weeks ago and the resignation of Prime Minister Sylvester Ilunga last Friday following a censure motion in Parliament. Both belong to the camp of Kabila, who was succeeded 2 years ago by Tshisekedi, but kept a grip on power via supporters in Parliament. South Africa's Consumer Commission is looking into a reported increase in the price of ginger and garlic at various retail outlets. The Commission will probe Woolworths, Pick n Pay, ShopRite, Spar, Food Lovers Market, Cambridge Foods, and Boxer stores, the state's new agency reports. The probe was launched after various complaints by members of the public. Garlic and ginger have often been mentioned as natural remedies against common cold and other illnesses. The Consumer Commission has ordered the public to be on the lookout for other stores hiking prices of these and other goods and report them for action. Those found guilty of increasing prices of goods could be fined or imprisoned in accordance with the local laws. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS TV network. You're watching TOS News 360. Up next, stories from the international scene after the break. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Myanmar's military rulers have blocked access to Facebook days after they overthrew the democratic government. Officials said the social media platform for many Myanmar's main source of online information and a key rallying point for opposition to Monday's coup would be blocked for the sake of stability. The Ministry of Communications and Information said access to Facebook would be blocked until 7 February. However, it was still reported to be accessible sporadically. In further civil disobedience, lawmakers are refusing to leave their compound in the capital, and more pot-banging was seen in Yangon. The U.S. Embassy in New Delhi urged India's government on Thursday to resume talks with farmers whose month-long protests over agricultural reforms erupted into violence last week. India's foreign ministry said it had taken note of the comments and underlined ongoing efforts between Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government and farmers' groups to resolve the situation. We encourage that any differences between the parties be resolved through dialogue, a U.S. Embassy spokesperson said in a statement that also offered general support for the government's efforts to improve the efficiency of India's markets and attract greater private sector investments. We recognize that unhindered access to information, including the internet, is fundamental to the freedom of expression and the hallmark of a thriving democracy, the U.S. Embassy spokesperson said. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS TV network. You are watching TOS News 360. Up next, business news. Do stay tuned. Thanks for staying tuned. You are still watching TOS News 360. In business, the federal government had revealed that it is expecting over 1 trillion naira investment from the private sector for the development and maintenance of the various highways earmarked for concessioning under the Highway Development Management Initiative. This is as the expected fund from the private investors would reduce the financial burden of maintaining and rehabilitating the concession highway roads and free up funds for the federal government to meet other obligations. It was gathered in Abuja on Wednesday that with the funds from private investors, the government would be free of the burden of maintaining and rehabilitating the identified roads. Also, the impact of such investment on the economy was huge, as it would trigger many activities to stimulate the highway economy across the country. The federal government has announced that the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund has successfully implemented the disbursement of $165,700,000 worth of loans to 239 beneficiaries so far. This was disclosed in a statement by the federal government on Wednesday, with the exercise said to have received 3 million applications so far. The statement added that the fund is being implemented by Youth Ministry in partnership with the CBN and Ministry of Finance and is being disbursed through NIRSAL. Gambia's record high remittance inflows have more than compensated for the country's decline in tourism revenue due to coronavirus-related travel restrictions, according to the International Monetary Fund. Remittance and capital transfers stood at $588 million in 2020, a 78% rise compared to 2019, leading to a positive balance of payments overall. Mamadou Barry, the IMF's resident representative, said in a statement following the first review of its current IMF program. Authorities estimated it stood to lose $292 million of the industry's revenue by the end of 2020 due to the fallout from coronavirus-related travel restrictions. Growth is projected to rebound to 6% in 2021 and average 6.5% in the medium term if the government implements the stimulus package included in the 2021 budget and global conditions normalize, Barry said. The IMF also recommends Gambia focuses on fiscal consolidation and improving debt management. The federal government, in collaboration with the World Bank, have commenced the process to rebase Nigeria's gross domestic product. In its bid to rebase Nigeria's GDP, the National Bureau of Statistics spokesperson, Ichedi Sunday, said in a statement issued in Abuja that the objectives of the National Business Sample Survey include to rebase the gross national product from 2010 to 2018 and 2019. It also is to provide sectorial data at national and state levels, determine the structure of the Nigerian economy, determine the sectors that drive the Nigerian economy and those that require government intervention to improve them. Others, he said, were to serve as a benchmark for subsequent commercial and industrial sector statistics surveys. This is your digital first Pan-African network, TOS TV network. You're watching TOS News 360. Up next, entertainment and sports. On the entertainment scene, the blockbuster Omogeto, the Saga, comedy movie by Nollywood actress Funke Akindele-Bello, also known as Jennifer, has become the first to cross 500 million naira in box office. The Cinema Exhibitors Association of Nigeria recently announced that the movie has become the highest grossing Nollywood movie. According to CAN report, the movie, which had maintained the #1 spot for 6 weeks in a row, has broken Nollywood's box office record with a current revenue of 501,449,050 naira. The latest record comes barely a week after it surpassed Kemi Adetiba's The Wedding Party, smashing its 4-year record. The movie, which is a sequel to 2010 trilogy Omogeto, the story of Shalewa, aka Lefty Funke Akindele, was released on Christmas Day 2020. And in sports, Mo Farah wins the World Cancer Day Solidarity Challenge. The 4-time Olympic champion beats world football champion Robert Pires and Ada Hedberg to win cycle race in aid of World Cancer Day. We are all here to put in as much work as we can and make it as fun as possible. And it is great to see so many people taking part in this event. All we do for cancer is really important to come together, and there are not many events happening in the world. So to make this proper event, it is incredible, Farah said. 60,000 cyclists and some of the big names in sports and the entertainment industry took part in a virtual bike ride to raise funds to battle cancer. The aim was to join forces in the fight to prevent millions of people from dying prematurely from the disease. The Union for International Cancer Control is the largest and oldest global membership organization dedicated to the fight against cancer. no singing, no dancing, and masks at all times. These are some of the measures unveiled by the organizers of the Tokyo Olympics as part of a COVID-19 plan seeking to ensure the event goes ahead in a safe way. The rollout of the first of a series of playbooks on Wednesday was aimed at assuring athletes and sports officials and an attempt to convince the Japanese public that the Olympics should not be postponed again. The playbook introduced on Wednesday is aimed at international sports federations and technical officials, with guides for athletes, broadcasters, and the media set to come in the next few days. The 32-page document deals with hygiene, testing, immigration, and states that officials will be allowed to skip quarantine as long as they monitor their health for 14 days after arriving in Japan. Rule breakers will face consequences that may have an impact on participation at the Games, the guide warned, with repeated or serious failures potentially leading to offenders being kicked out. The rules are set to be updated in April and again in June. And that is TOS News 360 on your digital First Pan-African network. For more updates, visit www.tostvnetwork.com. Do follow and like TOS TV Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And remember to subscribe on YouTube. Do stay with us and enjoy more programs on TOS TV Network. I am Ruel Panao. Bye for now.